right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and hopefully everybody's still somewhat awake after lunch. Okay, so I am Susan Phelps with AECOM. I'm based out of the Raleigh office. I am a GIS project manager there. Been with the company, 22 years now. And I'm actually joined today by Matt Naney and JD Hutchinson from our environment and transportation groups. So we're going to cover a little bit about AECOM and then highlight some of the projects that we've been working on. So AECOM, if you're not familiar with us, we're a global consulting services company. We're heavily focused on sustainability and equity initiatives. And here's just some quick stats about AECOM. I think these are pretty recent from the end of 2022. So like I mentioned, we're a global corporation. We've got about 50,000 people working on all 7 continents. So quite a large company. We have won quite a few awards recently. I think two of the ones I'd highlight are the world's most admired companies and the world's most ethical companies. Won both of those last year, as well as some of these other accolades. Okay, so here locally in North Carolina, we have offices in Raleigh, Charlotte, and a smaller presence in our Wilmington office as well. So some local stats. So we've got, apparently that's animation's on or something, over 45 years providing geospatial services here locally. Globally, we've got over 4,000 GIS users and over 600 GIS professionals. We also have dozens of certified UAS pilots and several ASPRS certified photogrammetrists. Say that 5 times fast. And then we've got, I think, over about 10,000 projects that are supported by our GIS staff. So these are some of the focus areas for our geospatial services, and I'm actually on the next slide here, goes into a little bit more detail about some of the offerings that AECOM provides. So some of the key focus areas: spatial data services, obviously, program and project management, application development, enterprise GIS, and then in the middle there you can see some of our specialized services that we provide. Okay, so I mentioned that we're a global corporation. We're kind of divided into several different business lines. So we have a buildings and places group, we have an energy group, environment, national governments, we've got program management, construction, transportation, and water. And the GIS group services all of these business lines in various ways. So on the left here, this is Colette Monroe. She's actually AECOM's Chief Digital Officer, and she actually spoke at the recent Esri Partner Conference and joined the stage with Esri to talk about deepening our partnership with Esri, and particularly highlighting our new Plan Engage digital platform, which I believe Matt may have a slide or two about coming up. And then just another thing to highlight in terms of Esri partnerships, we were recently awarded the Esri Cornerstone Partner Award. So we partnered with Esri for 20 plus years, and this was to acknowledge our commitment and consistent dedication to the use of geospatial technology to advance the GIS community. Okay, so that was just kind of a high-level overview about us. So now I wanted to highlight some of our geospatial projects with a particular focus on some things that we're working on here in North Carolina. So the first set here is going to be the water group, and apparently I've still got advancing on, sorry. For the water group, and Atlas we're actually providing support on through several of our business lines, including water and transportation staff. And so we've been supporting the Atlas program for the past several years. We've provided business analysts, GIS specialists, programming and project management staff, for various environmental, transportation, and water-related initiatives. And we also are providing support to the Atlas sweeping and hydraulics teams. And so this is just one of the data sets that we're working on or have been working on for Atlas. It's a statewide surface water data set, millions of streamlines in there. As you can see, it's quite dense, but working closely in coordination with the DOT team to develop that. And right now, I believe the version that's published is version 1.4 on Atlas, but our team is working to get a version 2.0 of the data set out onto the Atlas site. And one of the key features of this hydrography data set is that we've actually linked quite a few key attributes from NCDEQ into the hydrography data. Okay, so next is some work that we've done for North Carolina Emergency Management, the risk management section. And this is NCFMP Rain-On Grid 2D flood mitigation studies, and then also an advisory flood data viewer. So these are just two of the more recent initiatives that we've been working on for NCFMP. So with the 2D rain-on grid modeling, we performed simplified modeling and developed associated products to communicate areas of advisory flood risk in North Carolina. So generally, you have 1D models which are providing the majority of the defined river analyses in North Carolina. So this 2D level modeling really goes beyond that current coverage area. And these 2D models are really most applicable to streams on flat terrain with broad floodplains, which obviously we have here in North Carolina, where you've got flow moving in different directions, or where flow is hydrologically disconnected between the main channel and the floodplain, or braided flow. So this 2D rain-on grid modeling allows evaluation of fluvial or riverine flooding as well as pluvial flooding within the same model. So if you're not familiar with pluvial flooding, that's surface water flooding caused when heavy rainfall creates a flood event independent of an overflowing water body. So in the figure here, you'll see grid cells in the model and the flow vectors that show the direction of flow varying from being strictly within a floodplain. Okay, so this is some of the flood mapping products that have been developed as part of that 2D rain-on grid modeling. You can see some with the advisory flood polygons. You can see with the S advanced flow hazard area, that feature class contains all surface water elevation events with the flood event lookup ID. Okay, so and you can see the events that we're creating elevation grids for. So it's a variety of flooding events at like 5-year, 10-year, 100-year, up to 1,000-year, and the probability of the flooding within a 30-year period. Okay, and then so the advisory flood risk assessment, we had developed a geodatabase that's housing the advisory flood data products listed on that previous slide there. So it includes this database, geodatabase includes a seamless relationship to the existing NC IRIS database that houses the building footprints. So what we've been doing with this is looking at hazard impacts by hazard impacts as they apply to the building footprints based on whether the footprint physically touches the advisory flood hazard surface water elevation raster for each recurrence interval. And so all of this data that we've been collecting as part of this 2D flood modeling is going into this advisory flood viewer, and you can see the URL posted at the top there if you're interested in checking that out. So it's a web-based public GIS viewer used to communicate these types of non-regulatory hazard areas to the public. And this slide shows the advisory flood mapping and risk assessments as they juxtapose with the NCEM's risk management group's effective regulatory floodplain mapping. And it's done at a structure level. So in this screenshot here, you can see the advisory flood viewer showing the advisory flood mapping and risk assessments. Oh, whoops, I just said that actually. So the example here shows surface water elevations at various annual chance flooding events for an area and some possible mitigation techniques shown at the bottom there. Okay, so another big initiative we've just recently started is the NC Flood Resiliency Blueprint. And this project is just getting started up. It's in coordination with NCDEQ, Division of Mitigation Services. And I won't go into a lot of detail because if you stick around, you'll see Elizabeth presenting on this exact topic right after us. So stick around for that. But yeah, so this is just kind of, a high-level overview, what they're trying to achieve with this flood resiliency blueprint. And then this is a sample workflow in the example here of the data management task for the blueprint. Okay, so some of the projects I've shown were really highlighting more of our flood risk solutions work. And so I've got a couple of slides here showing some other projects that our water group is working on locally and nationally. So this first one is data visualization and site suitability modeling. This is actually a nationwide model, and it's used to identify underserved populations at risk of PFAS exposure. And so this is something that should also be considered when where bipartisan infrastructure law funds could be accessed to help mitigate for those areas. So the most suitable sites on the map here are in green, and the least suitable are shown in red. And we've used all open source data for this, and there's a big focus on DoD facilities and airports with this analysis. So the criteria has been weighted according to overall contribution to research question. And the results were used to provide leadership with the means to focus resources on at-risk communities for the PFAS. And I know what it stands for, but I could not even attempt to pronounce it. But okay, so another example is, delayed reaction there. Land use restrictions and construction site stormwater permit project delineation. So this was a project that our water group worked on with U.S. Marine Corps, and we provided updates to the Marine Corps land use restriction GeoFidelis layer. where we delineated high-density land use drainage areas. And this was basically a comparative analysis between permitted drainage area versus actual and permitted built-upon area versus actual. So some of the things that this would be used for is improvements to stormwater spatial data, granular picture of discrepancies between permitted and actual conditions, and it provides a means to anticipate permit restrictions and modifications. Okay, and then the last one here is spatial analysis of PFAS, fate and transport. So this is a multi-pronged approach to identify high-risk regions of PFAS, fate and transport. We've incorporated multiple open source data sets here, and results used to provide clients with ranked regions of their property at risk of PFAS contamination, so they can identify areas where further investigation is warranted. And I do have some slides on our Pipe Insights, one of our new digital solutions, but I'm not going to go into detail on those here because we're a bit short on time. But I will say that I have some flyers if anybody's interested in more information on Pipe Insights. It's basically supports capital improvement programs and that development process. And if you come see us at the booth, we've got more information there as well. So with that, I am going to turn it over to JD, actually, and he'll talk a bit about some transportation projects.
Thank you. I'm going to try to go through this really quick because in the transportation planning group, GIS is sometimes kind of an afterthought. There are a lot of great planners who know that they want maps, but they don't know what they want. So we've done a lot of just making paper maps for reports and things in the past. But now it's a new age and we're moving into ArcGIS Online. We're using Survey 123 for public engagement surveys, which is really great for capturing those geographic components in addition to just, getting answers to the questions that the planners are interested in. We're building dashboards for some of our clients so that they can see, in real time. This is a dashboard that we built for a client for their pavement conditions. We'd had a project with them for several years, so we had years of pavement condition surveys going back, so we could put that all into one dashboard and they could look through it over time and see how they're doing with the streets as they're evaluating how well their program is working. They can break it down by different types of damages to those streets so they can see, okay, all of the streets in this area seem to get alligator cracking. Maybe we should look at who the contractor was that we hired to go and do that. We're working with things like quick capture. There's a proof of concept that I was working on with some people about marrying a Survey 123 form for certain types of evaluations with quick capture to let them go out and actually get a number of different pictures of the site and link it back to the data that they were recording with Survey 123. And in addition to what I have up here, I know that our traffic and noise group is using ArcGIS Online so that people can go out in the field and place receptors, and then if there are adjustments that need to be made, they don't have to go back and forth. People who don't even have a lot of experience using GIS are able to use ArcGIS Online to edit things and move points to where they actually should be as opposed to where the plan said it was going to be. Because when you get out in the field, as I'm sure a lot of you know, things aren't always the way it looks when you're looking at a nice clean map. But I am going to go into a little bit more detail about the right-of-way tool. This is something that I built with the help of several of our other transportation planners. If you don't know, NCDOT has a program called Express Designs that helps them to program the STIP. And what they do with these Express Designs is they've got 60 different consulting firms, and each firm can take one of the projects that they're looking at and do a very quick back-of-the-envelope design on it, so that they can do a cost-benefit analysis to see where that's going to land in the STIP. And this right-of-way tool that we built helps us to provide NCDOT with a cost estimate for the right-of-way component of that cost-benefit analysis. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, so what our right-of-way tool does is it will take the polygon for the proposed right-of-way and evaluate that against the property using the statewide parcel layer. And I don't know if you guys had a chance to go see that presentation this morning, but that was outstanding. And those people, if you are a member of local government who is helping to populate that, thank you very much, because it helps us to run this tool. And it is just outstanding. So we will run our tool on this, which will use a number of factors we got from NCDOT to evaluate what percentage of the value of that property they would need to pay the landowner for what they're taking. Because obviously, if you're taking 10 feet of somebody's front lawn, you're not necessarily going to need to pay them for that percentage of their house. You just need to pay them for the land. Conversely, otherwise, we also evaluate whether that roadway is coming within a certain distance of a building to make sure that they don't have to purchase the whole thing. So it does very simple geographic analysis. I mean, this is all stuff that I'm sure everybody here has done in entry-level GIS classes. You're taking one polygon and putting it over others and just trying to figure out what percentage of overlap there is. But then it adds on to that by adding multipliers that are factors that NCDOT gave us. And like I said, I'm going to go through this really quickly. Once we finish with the GIS portion of the tool, we hand it over to people who have experience doing right-of-way work, because there's not everything, you can't capture everything in GIS. Landscaping is something that I don't believe that anybody will ever develop a GIS layer for. Sometimes signage for buildings are things that just aren't captured well. And when a human is looking at something, you can see that this percentage of land that we're taking from this property is going to impact the way that cars have to go through the drive-through at the McDonald's, and we're going to need to compensate them more than we would if it were just empty grass. So that partnership that we have has been very beneficial for everybody. We have processed, this slide says over 900. We are really close to doing 1,000 since we started this project in 2017. And a lot of them are small. Some of them are big, very complex projects with multiple alternatives in separate sections. I think the largest one we had 20 different individual segments that we had to evaluate. It all goes through the tool one way at the same time. So, if anybody would like to talk about that, I'll be around afterwards. I'm trying to help get us a little bit back on track. The automation portion of this took the processing time from 40 hours of work when we had just a GIS technician going through it step by step, down to about 2 hours. And most of that is label placement on maps, which everybody knows is a pain, but has to be done if you want something that looks nice. So anyway, I'm going to turn the things over to Matt, and we'll... Sorry.
So I'm here to represent the environment business line for this. And what I want to do is just give a broad overview of what we do for that. I work in EHS and management sector thereof, but I really kind of cross-pollinate all kinds of different business lines as part of that. I think classically people think of remediation or the remediation portion of it, which is a huge chunk of the company for that. I think it's 70% of the environmental business line for that. But we do a lot of other interesting things as well, including growing factors in the energy sector and a tremendous recalibration back to environmental social governance as well, ESG as part of that. Implementation of GIS technology in this is fairly broad. We do quite a bit of field data collection and analysis, web application development, public engagement as part of that. And really focusing way back to the EHS part of that, building custom solutions for environmental compliance and monitoring as part of that. So, thank you.
You don't really have